Geography is really important because a sound geographic knowledge is the solution to many of the problems that our children that will be facing today and in the future. Things from global climate change to changing economic patterns and shifts, all events take place, and it's really important. In fact, it's key for children to understand this so that they can face these problems as adults. There's good news and bad news to geography in the classroom. The bad news first. Geography was the only subject that was not funded in the No Child Left Behind Act. And in 2006, there was a Roper survey that exposed the lack of geographic knowledge among young Americans age 18 to 24. Believe it or not, 9 out of 10 could not find Afghanistan on a world map, and this is after the U.S. had been there for several years. 6 out of 10 could not find Iraq on a map, which is amazing. 1 in 3 could not find Louisiana on a map, and amazingly enough, there were 50% that could not find New York City on a map, and this is after 9/11. The good news is that geography standards are now present in all 50 states, and in the state of Texas, geography is required at the 9th grade level, a full year of geography, and testing is going to begin in 2010. AP Human Geography is the fastest growing subject across the country in high schools. And in Georgia, geography is infused through all grades from kindergarten to 8th grade. There's still some work to be done. At the high school level, there are 181 districts, and geography is offered in only 80. We at the Georgia Geographic Alliance, the National Geographic Society, and the Department of Education are here to help. The Georgia Geographic Alliance was funded in 1988, and we have nearly 1,000 members now to promote geography education across the state of Georgia. Nearly all of our members are teachers, and I invite you to check us out on our website, GeorgiaStandards.Org, for our free resources and teaching workshops.
Why is it important for us to continue to study geographic literacy in our world history class? Kelsey, could you tell us what you think today?
Geography is important to me in world history because it helps me understand why people located where they did.
And when we talk about push and pull factors, again, I want to go back to Georgia Studies because this is your most recent social studies class. What types of factors might have encouraged people or pulled people to settle in Georgia? Hunter.
I believe there's a variety of reasons why people would have been pulled to come live in Georgia. I think one of the big ones would be the climate in Georgia. It's fairly warm throughout the year. You ain't got really cold winters or really hot summers. I mean, you also have a good annual precipitation in Georgia.
Geography is integrated in the Georgia Performance Standards beginning with kindergarten and running all the way through the high school courses. We have taken and used various geographic themes such as location and human-environmental interaction in order to work through the various grades and link geography to both history, economics, and to some degree government. In this video, you will see the use of the theme location and how it affects people and how it affects cultures and how it affects their choices and decisions. When we start with kindergarten, you'll see students working on discovering location on a globe in terms of the amount of water versus the amount of dirt or earth or landforms that are there. And then as we move to 4th grade, they'll continue that same idea of location and its impact on people, looking in the colonial period of the history of the United States and seeing how the various regions are affected in terms of economy, culture, or social development. Then when we look at 7th grade, we will see the students studying Africa and how location affects the development of cultures and societies in Africa. And finally, we'll conclude with the world history class looking at Mesopotamia and the impact of location and the use of rivers and water in terms of their development. So the whole idea of location, which begins in kindergarten, moves all the way through, and we keep using that same theme and that same idea over and over again, but expanding it to different examples, different ideas, different places, so students get the understanding of how geography really does impact us in many ways and how we continue to develop that theme throughout the course of their K-12 education.
Well, the role of geography in the kindergarten classroom is determined by the Georgia Performance Standards. In kindergarten, the students are introduced to, it's their first introduction to maps and globes. So in the lesson, we begin the lesson by talking about this round object that they might be seeing for the first time, some of them. And we go and we explain and we describe what this object is, the size, the shape, and they're pretty much, I'm making sure that they're comfortable with the objects. They get a chance to take a look at it. And when they look at it, they'll see the differences in colors on the globe. And then I ask them, you know, what is that? And they're able to tell me, they should be able to tell me whether it's land or water. And that's exactly what the activity is about, them just becoming familiar and being able to decide, you know, is this land or is this water? So what we do is we're all in a round circle and they're bouncing this big, large globe. And when they catch it, they need to tell me where their thumb lands on it, whether it lands on water or it lands on land. And then afterward, they go and they chart how many times the finger lands on water, how many times their finger lands on land.
When studying geography, it's very important to include a big idea or an enduring understanding. That way students can make connections to what they're learning. So the idea of location, for example, in kindergarten, we want students to understanding that where you live matters. So that as students are learning about maps and globes and the different places on a map and globe, land, water, students can begin to decide, well, I make these choices because I live here on land, and I make these choices because I'm near water. And so as students are learning these things in kindergarten, and that big idea, that enduring understanding is being seen throughout first, second, even third and fourth grade. When kids get that same question, understanding how history is influenced by their geography. You know, kids can understand that where you live matters in terms of colonial times. Thinking about how the different colonists settled in the different regions, you know, they can begin to see how the geography of that area and where they live mattered at that time, affected the economies that developed and the culture that developed as these colonists settled in the early times of our history.
First group of colonies that we're going to be looking at are the ones you wrote on the first line. What is that? New England colonies. So you're going to open your atlas to page 24 where you find a very good map of the New England colonies. And be sure you follow the borders, and you're going to outline those on your map with the marker. You and your partner can take turns. One outlines this time, the next one outlines the next time. So go ahead and use the black marker to outline the New England colonies on the map. The way that I incorporate geography into my social studies lessons in fourth grade is to, first of all, read the performance standards for fourth grade, and we do have some very specific examples provided in the standards that explicitly explain how to do that. And so I'm always sure that that's one of the main things that I focus on perhaps first in the lesson. And because that leads to the development of history and social studies and where people settled, and then you can get into the economics, it all sort of starts with geography. So that's an easy thing for me to be able to incorporate. Part of the standard says that you should be able to contrast or tell the differences between the New England, Middle Atlantic, and Southern colonies. So what are some differences that you could use to compare how these colonies were different from each other? Tanasari?
Like in New England, the main thing they did was fishing, and whaling and boat making. But in Southern and middle colonies, they only did few. So, and in the Southern colonies, they grew indigo. And in middle colonies and New England, you couldn't grow indigo or rice. So that's why they mostly, you need to know to
Contrast them, okay. Mm-hmm. And what did they do with those different products from each group of colonies?
They all traded it back and forth. Like if you wanted fish, you would go to New England. And if you wanted indigo for your jeans, you would have to go to the Southern colonies.
That's excellent. That's a very good example.
We're looking at the importance of location as we go from the 4th grade to the 7th grade. So in the 4th grade, the location is being used as the importance of location on colonial North America. As we move to 7th grade in Africa, we're looking at the importance of the location of the water and how that impacts where people decide to live and where large cities tend to develop, which is usually near bodies of water. And we go even further than that in discussing what are some of the consequences of not actually having access to water. So the theme of location is extremely important in social studies from kindergarten to 12th grade.
Many students are unfamiliar with different parts of the world at ages of 12 and 13. In 7th grade, our challenge is to get them more familiar with the world. Location is an essential theme in 7th grade world studies. Our primary focuses are the continents of Asia and Africa. This can be challenging because for most students, their idea of the world or their worldview consists primarily of the neighborhood they may live in or the state itself. The goal is to bring other students' life experiences, students that may have lived in other parts of the United States or in other parts of the world, and have them share their personal experience to make the concept of world regions and geography and the theme of location more real for these students. This, in my classroom, is done in many different ways. We try to utilize and make things relevant by focusing on current events across the world. This helps engage the students in their study of world regions, such as Asia and Africa. Location, 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 all right? Location is very important, okay? Location has a huge impact on a lot of different things, okay? How many of you have lived in another location besides Georgia? Abraham, where have you lived? What other location have you lived in other than Georgia?
In Boston.
In Boston. Describe how Boston's location was different than the location of Atlanta. How was it different living in Boston than now living in Atlanta?
It was colder, it snowed more often, and I had to dress up in warmer clothes.
Wow, you had to dress warmer, so it affected the clothing that you wore. You also said that it was colder, and that's why he had to dress warmer. So the climate was different. So that's two clear ways that location affects our day-to-day lives. All right, John, explain how location impacts the continent of Africa.
Location impacts the continent of Africa by, Africa is located near the equator, and the equator runs through Africa. Mm-hmm. So being near the equator means you have warm heat. Instead of near the desert, you have intense heat.
Very good. And as he stated, in the desert, there's intense heat. Now, would a person want to live in the intense heat of the desert, or would they rather live in a much cooler or tropical climate like in the center of Africa, in Central Africa? By the time I received the students in 7th grade, most of them have mastered the map and globe skills. It's my job to continue to build upon those map and globe skills and infuse them in the day-to-day curriculum in regards to Asia and Africa. Also in 7th grade, the goal is to help them master the skills of latitude and longitude. These skills are applied in various ways and best taught in context, not in isolation. So as we're teaching geography in the continent of Africa, the latitude and longitude piece is interwoven in the curriculum.
Geography is a lot more than maps and physical features. I like to call geography the why of where, and I really believe that all of us are born geographers, and you can watch children on a field trip how they'll fight for a window seat, or on an airplane ride they'll fight for a window seat. They love geography because they can see it in the landscapes that they live through every day. So geography used to be memorizing state capitals and things like that, but we're teaching it a lot more exciting these days to actually focus on why things are located where they are, to make it exciting, because you can see it all around you.
We have added some geography elements to the history standards, both U.S. and world history, in order to ensure that students understand the impact geography has had on history. What we did is brought together a team of teachers, U.S. history, world history, and geography teachers, and then consultant from the University of South Florida, and we brought in some social studies curriculum supervisors to look through the U.S. and world history curriculum and look at where really should geography be emphasized in our history curriculum. The net result has been some new elements, some refining of some other elements in order to make sure that students understand the role geography plays in history and its importance.
It is important that I integrate geography skills into my world history class in order for me to capture prior knowledge that the students have been exposed to in the earlier grades with the skill matrix. And I reinforce and help the students to master that knowledge at the high school level in my world history class using geographical skills. In our lesson today, the focus was to look at the connecting theme of location and for the students to have an understanding of the enduring understanding associated with location. We were looking at Standard 1 and Element A from our GPS. I wanted them to incorporate location as concerns a specific region in the world that we would be studying, which was Mesopotamia.
Although no new skills are introduced to students at the high school level, it is important for the teacher to continue to have the students apply those skills that they learned in elementary and middle school to the new content that they're learning in high school. For instance, the use of maps and charts and tables in the study of history can really bring that historical content to life. Also, the students can use these skills to solve problems and to apply analysis to historical situations. And this is why the skills matrix is still a vital part of the high school curriculum.
Great response. I'm so glad all of you guys wanted to respond today. But I think today I'd really like to hear from Alan. Thank you.
By studying geography and world history, I have gained a greater appreciation of why people move around the world. The site and setting of a location affect greatly where a person locates and why they locate there.
Great job, Alan. I really appreciate the thoughts that you put into your summarizing activity for us today. Now, everyone has on their desk in front of them a timeline, right? The Mesopotamian timeline. So tonight, what I'd like for you to do for homework is think about what we have considered or what we've covered today. We've looked at our connecting theme of location. We've talked about our enduring understanding. The student will understand that location affects a society's economy, culture, and development. And your standard tonight wants you to focus on societies in the ancient Eastern Mediterranean from 3500 BCE to 500 BCE. So tonight I want you to take a few minutes to skim through your text in this section on the Mesopotamian cultures and put some information down on your timeline about which groups were pushed and pulled into the Mesopotamian region, into the Fertile Crescent throughout time. Because one of the key things that we're going to discover a little bit later on in our chapter, in our units and in our semester, is that this area of the world has a lot of current issues that go back to this time in history. Good job, guys.
I hope that by watching this video, teachers will be able to grasp how good it is to have geography in the classroom and how easy it is to infuse it. Having geography is good because it supports the standards, kids have fun doing it, and it works at every grade.